Nestled within the rugged expanse of the Appalachian Mountains, on the outskirts of a picturesque town, the Smith family made their home. Mark, a sturdy man with a wide, reassuring smile, spent his days working at the local lumber mill, his calloused hands a testament to his dedication. Sarah, a graceful woman with flowing chestnut hair framing her gentle features, managed the household with warmth and efficiency. Their children, Jake, a spirited 8-year-old with a perpetual twinkle in his eye, and Emily, a curly-haired dreamer with an infectious giggle, completed the close-knit family unit. With plans to visit relatives in a distant state, the Smiths chose to take a shortcut through the craggy Appalachian terrain. However, this particular route was notorious for its unsettling reputation. Local legends spoke of mysterious vanishings and eerie phenomena haunting its winding paths. Despite the ominous tales, Mark and Sarah dismissed them as nothing more than fanciful tales spun by the locals, their anticipation for the family journey outweighing any superstitions. The evening preceding their departure buzzed with excitement as the family gathered to prepare for the trip. Mark meticulously inspected their vehicle, ensuring every detail was in order, while Sarah bustled about the kitchen, preparing an assortment of snacks and drinks for the road. Jake and Emily eagerly assisted, their laughter filling the cozy homestead with joy. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, the Smiths loaded up their car, their hearts brimming with anticipation for the adventures that awaited them. Little did they know, the road ahead held secrets far darker than any tale spun by local lore, shrouded in the mysterious veil of its notorious reputation. 3 hours had passed since the Smith family embarked on their journey along the winding road deep into the heart of the Appalachian forests. Everything seemed calm and ordinary until the first incident occurred. As they approached the area notorious for its mysterious disappearances, according to local legends, something peculiar began to happen to their car. At first, it was just minor glitches. The radio started crackling and cutting out, and whenever the car passed certain spots on the road, the engine sputtered as if suddenly losing power. Mark tried to attribute it to technical issues, but deep down, he sensed that something was amiss. Sarah, too, felt an uneasy apprehension, especially as they drove past shadowy stretches of forest shrouded in dense fog. In her mind's eye, fleeting figures darted among the trees, and the silence seemed impenetrable. Yet she endeavored to conceal her unease, not wanting to disturb the tranquility of the other family members. The children also sensed something amiss. Jake, typically jovial and carefree, grew quiet and contemplative. Emily, sitting in the back seat, unexpectedly began to inquire why some parts of the forest appeared so alive, while others seemed utterly lifeless. As they all grappled with these strange riddles, the car squealed once more, then suddenly stalled, forcing them to pull over to the side of the road. It was just the beginning of their journey through the enigmatic and perilous expanses of the Appalachian forests. The Smith family found themselves in a tight spot when their car stalled on the roadside. Mark popped the hood and began inspecting the engine, searching for signs of what could have gone wrong. He felt around the wiring, checked the oil level and coolant, trying to pinpoint the cause of the breakdown. Meanwhile, Sarah stepped out of the car to support Mark and ensure the kids were okay. Both of them felt the growing unease but tried to remain calm, not wanting to instill panic in themselves or the children. Inside the car, the children watched with concern. Jake clenched his fists on his knees, while Emily held onto her favorite toy tightly. They didn't understand what was happening, but they could feel the tension enveloping their family. As Mark continued to investigate the engine, he suddenly noticed something odd. One of the wires seemed damaged. It could be the explanation for the problem. He grabbed tools from the trunk and swiftly began replacing the damaged wire. After a few tense minutes of work, Mark finished and closed the hood. He returned to the driver's seat, holding his tools, and let out a relieved sigh. "This should do it," he said, turning the key in the ignition. The headlights and dashboard lights flickered, and then, with a muted roar of the engine, the car came back to life. The Smith family breathed a collective sigh of relief, and as they pulled back onto the road, they continued their journey through the mysterious Appalachian forests. Several miles down the road, after the engine trouble had been seemingly resolved, the atmosphere inside the car began to shift. The radio, once a source of background music and occasional chatter, suddenly crackled to life with strange sounds, whispers, cries, and indistinct murmurs that sent shivers down their spines. Mark reached out to switch off the radio, but to his bewilderment, the knob refused to budge. He tried again, his brow furrowing in frustration, but the eerie sounds only grew louder, filling the car with an unsettling cacophony. Sarah's hands trembled as she fumbled with the controls, desperately attempting to silence the unsettling noise. With each failed attempt, her sense of unease deepened, and she shot a worried glance at the children in the backseat. Jake and Emily huddled closer together, their eyes wide with fear as the strange sounds filled the car. Jake's knuckles turned white as he clutched onto the armrest, while Emily buried her face in her hands, trying to block out the disturbing cacophony. In a final attempt to silence the radio, Mark forcefully pressed the power button, but instead of complying, the radio emitted a piercing screech before abruptly cutting out. Simultaneously, the car's engine sputtered and died, leaving them stranded once again on the desolate road. A heavy silence descended upon the car as the realization of their predicament sank in. The forest around them seemed to close in, the shadows growing deeper and more menacing with each passing moment. With no other option, they stepped out of the car, their hearts racing with apprehension, unsure of what awaited them in the darkness of the Appalachian night. Mark stepped out of the car once more, determination etched on his face as he popped the hood and attempted to diagnose the new issue plaguing their vehicle. But as he inspected the engine, his heart sank. It wasn't just a minor glitch this time. The entire electronic system appeared fried, leaving him with little hope of fixing it on his own. A surge of frustration and helplessness washed over him, threatening to overwhelm his composure. Blinking back tears of frustration, he fought to maintain his facade of strength for the sake of his family. With a heavy heart, he closed the hood and returned to the car, steeling himself to deliver the grim news. Sitting back behind the wheel, Mark turned to Sarah, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. "We've got some serious trouble here," he said, his words weighed down by the gravity of their situation. "We're going to need help to get out of this." Sarah's heart sank as she reached for her phone, her fingers trembling as she attempted to call for assistance. But her efforts were in vain. No signal. Panic threatened to claw its way to the surface as the realization of their isolation set in. With a deep breath, Sarah looked to Mark, her eyes filled with fear. "What do we do now?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the surrounding forest. Mark's jaw tightened as he scanned the darkened landscape. "We wait," he replied, his voice tinged with resignation, "and hope that help finds us before it's too late." As the night deepened and the fog thickened, the eerie whispers from the radio took on a more sinister tone. Intermingled with the static, the voices seemed to hiss warnings. "Leave. Run. You will die if you stay here." Each word sent a chill down their spines, raising the hairs on the back of their necks. Mark clenched his jaw, his knuckles white, as he gripped the steering wheel. Determined to protect his family, he made a decision. Despite the darkness and the looming shadows of the forest, he would stand watch, ready to flag down any passing cars for help. With a heavy heart, he stepped out of the car once more, the cool night air wrapping around him like a suffocating blanket. The fog obscured his vision, reducing the world to a dimly lit haze. But Mark pressed on, his senses alert for any sign of approaching headlights. Minutes stretched into hours as Mark stood vigil by the roadside, his eyes scanning the darkness for any glimmer of hope. But the only sounds that reached his ears were the distant calls of nocturnal creatures and the mournful howl of the wind. Yet, amidst the silence, the haunting whispers persisted, echoing through the night like a foreboding omen. Ignoring the unsettling voices, Mark remained steadfast, his resolve unwavering as he braced himself for whatever trials lay ahead. In the thick shroud of darkness, Mark's heart leaped as he glimpsed the distant glow of headlights piercing through the fog. With a surge of desperate hope, he frantically waved his arms, beckoning the approaching vehicle to stop and offer aid. As the car drew nearer, it slowed its pace, instilling a flicker of optimism within Mark's weary heart. He raced towards it, his feet pounding against the pavement, and reached out to the driver's window, his voice hoarse with urgency as he implored them to lend assistance. But as the window rolled down, Mark's hopes were dashed by the driver's ominous words. "You can't stop here," the voice intoned, its tone laced with a chilling finality. "If you stop, you'll be trapped here forever." Mark's blood ran cold at the cryptic warning, his mind reeling with disbelief and dread. Before he could formulate a response, the driver abruptly accelerated, leaving Mark standing alone on the desolate road, his heart heavy with a sense of foreboding. Returning to his family, Mark relayed the unsettling encounter, his words tinged with frustration and fear. It seemed that their situation was far more dire than they had initially realized, and the road ahead loomed ominously, obscured by the shadows of uncertainty. Sarah's heart raced as she glanced at her phone, her breath catching in her throat as she saw the blinking network indicator. With trembling fingers, she dialed the emergency services number, her voice quivering with urgency as she explained their predicament. "We're stranded in the woods," she rushed out, her words tumbling over each other in her haste. "Please, we need help. We have small children with us." And the operator's calm voice cut through her panic like a lifeline. "We've received your coordinates. Help is on the way. Stay inside the vehicle and keep calm. Help will arrive soon." Sarah's relief was palpable as she hung up the phone. Turning to her family, she relayed the news, her voice trembling with emotion. They clung to each other, a flicker of hope igniting in their hearts as they waited for the arrival of their rescuers. Outside, the night pressed in around them, the darkness punctuated only by the dim glow of the car's interior lights. The eerie silence of the forest seemed to envelop them, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or distant hoot of an owl. Time stretched on, each passing minute feeling like an eternity as they strained their ears for the sound of approaching rescue. Sarah held her children close, murmuring soothing words to calm their fears as they waited for the saviors. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, they heard it, the distant rumble of an engine, growing louder with each passing moment. Relief flooded through them as headlights pierced the darkness, heralding the arrival of their saviors. With bated breath, they watched as the rescue vehicle pulled up beside them, its lights casting long shadows across the forest floor. As the rescue team approached, Sarah felt tears prickle at the corners of her eyes, overcome with gratitude for their timely arrival. With the assistance of the rescue team, they were soon guided into the rescue vehicle. As they settled into the seats, a mix of exhaustion and relief washed over them. The rescue team inspected the Smiths' car, offering assurances that it would be retrieved by a tow truck in the morning. In the meantime, they were offered a ride to the nearest town, where they could find warmth, shelter, and a hot meal. The Smith family sat uneasily in the rescue vehicle as it veered off the main road and into the dense forest. Anxiety gnawed at their insides, but the reassurances of the rescue team kept their fears at bay. "This way will get us to town much faster," one of the rescuers explained, his voice calm but firm. As they journeyed deeper into the woods, the tension in the air became palpable. The trees loomed ominously overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to reach out towards them. Sarah exchanged a worried glance with Mark, but they both remained silent, not wanting to alarm their children. After about 30 minutes of winding through the forest, the whispering began. At first, it was barely audible, like the rustle of leaves in the wind. But with each passing moment, it grew louder and more distinct, sending shivers down their spines. The Smiths recognized the sound immediately. It was the same eerie whispering they had heard from the radio in their car. Their hearts pounded in their chests as the realization sank in. This wasn't just a coincidence. Something was terribly wrong. Their suspicions were confirmed when they glanced at the rescue team. The two rescuers in the front seat were whispering to each other, their voices carrying the same unsettling cadence as the whispers that filled the air. Panic surged through the Smith family as they realized they were trapped. They frantically tried to open the doors, but they were locked tight. The two rescuers in the front turned to face them, their expressions twisted into sinister grins. Sarah's voice trembled as she addressed them. "What's going on? Let us out of here." But the rescuers only laughed, their laughter echoing through the darkened forest like a sinister chorus. The Smiths were alone, trapped in the woods with no one to hear their cries for help. As the morning mist began to dissipate, the rescue team's vehicle arrived at the spot where they expected to find the Smith family. Dressed in their official uniforms, the respectable men hurriedly scanned the surroundings, but their efforts proved futile. All that stood on the roadside was the Smiths' car, with no sign of the family themselves. Exchanging concerned glances, the rescuers discussed possible locations where the missing family might have gone. They breathed a sigh of relief when they heard that the dispatcher had asked them to wait a little longer before taking further action. However, as minutes stretched into eternity and the family failed to appear, a decision was made to retrieve the car and continue searching along the road back to town. Even as they returned, the rescuers' eyes remained vigilant, scouring the surroundings for any sign of the family. But to no avail. The city authorities were notified of the Smith family's disappearance, and local residents began to discuss the astonishing and chilling vanishing act. Rumors and legends circulated about the cursed suburban road, where mysterious and terrifying events unfolded. For them, it was not just an urban myth, but a reality that locals knew all too well. The Smith family had vanished as if swallowed by the ominous shadows of the suburban road, and despite the efforts of rescuers and local authorities, their fate remained a mystery, becoming part of the dark legend that continued to haunt the hearts of those in this sinister corner of the world.